Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. It is rarely when you have two entities at the same time wanting to attack one another. Usually there's one entity wanting to attack another entity, or the other entity wanting to attack this entity. Rarely they just decide overnight, you know what, I think we're gonna go and attack the other guys. In this case, is Russia preparing to attack the European Union? Or is the European Union preparing to attack Russia? It's kind of like strange that both are preparing to attack one another. I mean, it's not impossible, that option. We're going to discuss here this matter from two articles. One from Russia Today and the other one, not only Russia Today, the evidence that the European Union is preparing to attack Russia, and then we're going to use some arguments provided by Ukrainska Pravda why the Russians prepared to attack the European Union, which both scenarios are bad. It's going to be war. Then we find out that the European Union, the guys supposedly in charge of the European Union, tell the people in Europe to stack food and water provisions for 3 days. Why would that be? Well, Peter Szijjártó, the foreign minister of Hungary, claims that someone's getting ready for a war. All right, we're going to discuss that one. And another little aspect here, we're going to have Zelensky and what role Zelensky plays in who wants to attack whom. Because his statements, and not only, his actions, really show who wants to attack whom. In this, Russia attacks the European Union, or the European Union, or the interest behind the European Union want to attack Russia. Let's start with the first article. The first article comes from Ukrainska Pravda, and it is from Friday the 28th of March 2025. Russia prepares for war with NATO, German intelligence. Now, let's say I am Russia and you are NATO, and you are coming closer to me, and you come here and you send your boys here and you saw boys here. What do? I prepare for a war with you. So who is getting ready to attack here? I might conduct an Tsushima, like 1904, when the Japanese surprise attack on the Tsar's fleet in the Tsushima Strait. Attack. I might try that to dismantle your fleet. Or I would try like the Japanese again in December 7, 1941 in Pearl Harbor. But it doesn't mean I'm going to knock you out. But am I the guy who attacks, or really it's you who attack me? So I'm just reacting to your attack. Now, this is the German intelligence. I don't believe squat when the German intelligence or the American intelligence or the British intelligence or the Russian intelligence comes and tells us something. I don't believe it just because they say it. I don't go by the authority figure. Here we are used in the society to listen to authority figure. And when you see, for instance, the State Department, the foreign minister came and said that one, the intelligence community said that one, we're supposed to just go, oh, that's true, man. That's an institution. It's an institution that is really in charge, is legitimate. No, it's not. They have their own interest. And besides, if you hear the intelligence is also involved in counterintelligence and in propaganda and in disinformation. And that's what it is, my friends. So I don't know what's going on here, but we're going to discuss it and find out. So again, German intelligence. So is he preparing for war in a defensive way, or is it just going to be, an offensive, attacking? German Federal Intelligence Services, BND, and the country's armed forces estimate that Russia views the West as a systemic enemy. Why? We're going to discuss that one. Are they entitled to? Is there any evidence why they reach this conclusion? Is building up its military power and preparing for a large-scale confrontation with NATO. All right. Well, okay. It has been argued that Putin's empire, there's not an empire, it's a federation, is ready to use military force to realize its imperialistic goals. But in the meantime, the United States of America, the peaceful country, wants to invade Greenland, Panama, Canada, and possibly the United Kingdom. But hey, and the Americans have about 740 military bases around the globe. But hey, the Russians are the imperialistic ones. Because, Russia moved westward in Ukraine to grab land in Europe. It was not NATO moving from the little garbage, eastward towards Russia. All right, so who should prepare? Russians because NATO comes closer, or NATO because Russia was over there and said, hey, don't come closer, I'm going to punch you. And now they punch them back. So who is under attack and who will counterattack? Who attacked and who's in offensive and who as a defensive possible strike? So this is the first one. It's not that Russia has imperialistic goals. Someone is way ahead of that. It's called neocolonialism. They don't have to occupy you. They just put the right people in place over there and they rule the way you want them to rule. And you get their resources and the manpower will work for you. The workforce will work for you like hamsters, like mice on their little spinning wheel. That's the neocolonialism. And you infect them through your media that you buy their media. That's why you partner with them. You infect them with your ideology and you destroy a society that loses its soul. Doesn't know who the hell they are. So what if it's okay? Well, I actually hate my ancestor. I don't like them. They are self-hatred, that is. All right. And then we have the Lithuanian intelligence also tells us, Lithuanian services believe that Russia is not yet in a position to wage a large-scale conventional war against NATO. It will never do that. They can't win in a conventional war. In the medium term, however, limited military action against one or another NATO country is possible. Well, if tomorrow Poland or Lithuania, they do something stupid, yeah, they will be fucked. That's true. But hey, again, who's pushing it? Oh, the Russians? Anyway, let's move to the next article. So now these guys say, remember, the Germans try to escalate the war in Ukraine. So when you hear the intelligence, do you think they're going to contradict the military? I don't think so. I mean, that's not how it works. The boss and then the subordinate. So let's see what these guys are saying. On the other side of the coin, European Union preparing for war. Member state. According to Russia Today, 29th of March, Brussels would do anything to avoid accountability for the billions of euros sent to Kiev, the Hungarian foreign minister has said. And what happened? Right here. Not you, I'm not going to subscribe to you ever. Associated Press. The European Union urges citizens to stockpile supplies to last 3 days in case of crisis. What do you think the crisis is? They are telling the baboons to be afraid that the boogeyman over there in the Kremlin will come and attack them to, take their wives, their property, their whatever they have, the kids, get them to the gulag because they have their, did you hear that? Imperialistic tendencies. All right, so this is it. What I see when I hear a country, nowadays, when I see a country, a government coming and telling its citizens, guys, you need to consume, that's the key word, consume right now because, we have a threat out there. And I look into it, or for me it's clear that's not a threat. This is just a boogeyman created for you to, keyword, consume. That tells me my economy is going bad. Why? If I'm a capitalist economy, then consumption is the engine of that. You can say, no, it is, competition is, okay, yeah, with that too. But if people don't consume the goods you advertise, the capitalism is dying. So therefore, you need the consumption. So when you come and say, Putin is going to attack us, go and consume, stockpile supplies. What does it tell you? That you're going to have some companies. No, it's just a resultant. It's just a result of that boogeyman. Then what? Some company is going to have a lot of profit all of a sudden, for 3 days, 5 days, 6 days. And then they're going to work like crazy. Remember the COVID-19? Remember the toilet paper crisis? Why did that happen? Because some people, the scared segment of the population, was afraid that they're going to shit and they're not going to be able to wipe their asses. That's what it was. So you didn't have toilet paper. Why? They went and bought it. And the toilet paper companies then, oh my God, we're going to have 3 shifts, morning, afternoon, and night. These baboons are, and exactly what they did. Go and look at the profits of the toilet paper companies. And not only, the same water stocking and stockpile and so on. For me, that's the signal. The European Union economy is taking a dump, and they need to somehow resuscitate it, somehow with fast consumption now. All right, and then we go back to Peter Sziarto, and he says this. He sees this as a sign that the European Union prepares for war against Russia. He says, the Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Sziarto has accused Brussels bureaucrats of clinging to a failed pro-war policy in a desperate attempt to delay the moment when European taxpayers, those guys right over there, asking where the money spent on bankrolling Kiev has gone. The European Union recently advised its 450 million inhabitants to stockpile essential supplies for at least 72 hours, with European Union Commissioner for Crisis Management warning on Wednesday that the Ukraine conflict threatens the bloc's overall security. But in the same time, the European Union is trying to get the war going. They give money to Ukraine. The French, which are not in the Europe, the Brits and the French, the Brits are not in the European Union, supposedly. They pump money into the war, including others. Sziarto said he initially thought the warning was some kind of joke of trolling. After Lachbib posted a bizarre video showing Europeans what to pack in a 72-hour survival kit. Let's see who the profiteers are. Maybe we're going to find out over there. And I'm quoting Sziarto. But why? In the 21st century, should European Union citizens prepare a survivor kit? Because their economy takes a dump. There's only one explanation, he says. Brussels is preparing for war. Well, if the Russians are coming, what do you want? Or they are going to go to the Russians. NATO, don't forget this, NATO moved towards Russia. NATO is not a defense alliance. NATO bombarded Yugoslavia, not in self-defense, right? So it's not like that. Here, there's only one explanation. Brussels is preparing for war, Sziarto word. At a time when there's finally a real chance for a ceasefire and meaningful peace talks with Trump's return to office, Brussels is going in the opposite direction, clinging to a failed pro-war policy. That's what Mr. Sziarto said. And we have here with billions of dollars. Since taking office, U.S. President Donald Trump has pushed for a diplomatic solution and sought to recoup the $300 billion in U.S. taxpayers. European Union institutions in Brussels and individual member states have spent over 132 billion euros, that's about $140 billion, over the past 3 years supporting Kiev and had pledged additional 115 billion euros, that's about $120 billion. Can you hear that? That has yet to be allocated, according to data from the German Skill Institute. So let's look at this little thing here. Maybe they're going to give us the survival kit here. Let's see, what do we have? You tell citizens that's the same thing, and it is the baboon who tells you to do that, okay? For 3 years, Ukraine have seen battlefield bombs. They're trying to argue from the perspective, the ethos. From the feelings perspective, not from the logos. Pathos, that's what's called, pathos. For the 3 years in Ukraine, we have seen a battlefield of bombs and bullets, drones, fighter planes, trenches and submarines. Okay, so why don't you stop? Oh, yes, our European security is directly threatened by this. All right, let's see. Where do we find what do you want to do? The EU is planning to create a strategic resources, including firefighting, aircraft, medical, transport, mobile, today's threats. There you go. I don't find here the what they want to buy. But, a survival kit, you need food, you need medical stuff. All right, here. Under the strategy, the EU is advising households to keep essential supplies, including non-perishable food, bottled water, flashlights, batteries, first aid materials, and key documents. All right, got it? And let's go to the last point of this one. The European Union's economy is taking a dump. That's the situation. It's going down. But that's the whole invest. And keep them afraid. If you keep them afraid, you can turn them whatever you want. Because the biggest segment of our population is the segment of cowards, or people who did not really experience life, so they're afraid of each corner. If you don't know what's going to be in the other room, you're kind of like, oh man, what am I going to expect to find over there? But if you have been in other rooms, you kind of expect what you're going to find in the other room. That's the whole point of direct experience versus the experience provided to you by the Hollywood, by the professors, teachers, politicians, and the media operatives. You need to experience yourself. When they tell you, that snake is not a venomous snake. Really? I saw that in real life. When that snake bit that person died. So you can tell me how much you want, you experts, and all your scientific papers and discoveries. Thank you very much. My direct experience creates a pattern. All right, let's move to the last one. This is one reason why who's going to actually incite the European Union and the Russians to go maybe to a war. They won't, because the Americans will smack them. I'm talking about the European Union. Zelensky, following another attack on Ukraine, Russia mocking world's peace efforts. I personally think it's Zelensky, not Putin, who really doesn't want peace. As a free human being, I should be entitled to make a fool of myself and just say Zelensky is the one who doesn't. All the people behind, the interests behind are not the Russians or the Americans at this point. It seems like the Brits and the French and the interests behind those entities are at play. So I think Zelensky doesn't want peace, not Putin. I think, but hey, I'm pretty sure that's the truth. But we're going to find out pretty short time. Just patience is a virtue still. So who's going to attack whom? I think these guys in Europe are dying, and they know it, and they just try to have like the final convulsions, spasms before they pass out. I think that's what it is. They still want to find relevancy on this planet, show that they still have muscles, because this war in Ukraine exposed NATO, the West, limitations, and the whole world was watching. So they can't portray themselves as being this weak or this strong. They can't, because an empire cannot show weaknesses. Once an empire shows weaknesses, you're going to have a lot of uprisings in the territory, in the provinces. So they can't portray this as a loss. They're going to show it as a humanitarian intervention by the good people of the West, trying to stop the war in Ukraine for the whole world benefit. Okay, and who started it? Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.